This is an image of one of the most famous shipwrecks in history. But what if I told you that this photo was actually staged? What if I also told you that the actual sinking of the ship looked nothing like this? And what if I told you there were only 23 people on board when it sank? Welcome to my channel. Today, we will be looking at the real reason behind the sinking of the Lusitania, which left over 1,000 dead. This is one of the biggest mysteries of the early 20th century. The year is 1915. For 2 years, Europe has been engulfed in the deadliest conflict the world has ever seen. As soldiers from across the globe die in the trenches, civilians back home wonder when it will end. Little do they know that soon they will be dragged into the conflict themselves. The British and French are fighting against the Germans and the Austrians, but all the fighting is happening on land and at sea. In order to wage war, nations need supplies. If they don't have the supplies, they can't fight. So the British Empire, along with its allies, began a naval blockade of Germany, meaning that no ships could go in or out of the country. This caused food and other essential supplies to run low in Germany. Soon, German U-boats or submarines began attacking any ship that came too close. They would sink these ships by ramming them and then detonating explosives to blow them up. On May 7, 1915, a captain named Edward Smith was in command of the largest and fastest ship the British had, the RMS Titanic. He was traveling from New York to Liverpool with over 1,900 people on board. Suddenly, a lookout shouted, "Iceberg, right ahead." The Titanic turned, but it was too late. The iceberg ripped a hole in the side of the ship, causing it to sink. More than 1,500 people died in the disaster. This shocked the world. How could such a large ship just sink like this? Why didn't they turn the ship around sooner? Who was responsible for this disaster? These questions ran rampant through the public's mind, but unfortunately, they would never get the answers. That is because every single person on board perished in the disaster, making it impossible to find out why. Now, nearly 2 years later, another massive ship is sailing across the ocean. It is the Lusitania. This ship is the largest and fastest ship that the British have. It is said to be unsinkable. This ship is carrying over 1,900 people. But there's a twist. There are no soldiers or munitions on board. This is purely a civilian ship. Suddenly, a lookout shouts, "Torpedo right ahead." The lookouts had warned Captain Turner that if this ship hit anything, it would probably explode. But he ignored these warnings. The torpedo hits the side of the ship, and the Lusitania sinks in just 18 minutes. Nearly 1,200 people die. The world is once again shocked by the disaster. Was this another case of a poorly made ship? Or was there something more sinister going on? Let's find out. We now travel to 1917. The United States of America has finally entered the war after several years of staying out of it. This is largely due to the sinking of the Lusitania. But not everyone is happy about this. Many Americans believe that entering the war will only cause more deaths and destruction. As America begins to enter the war, 2 assassins are on a mission. They want to prevent America from entering the war. But how? Well, their plan is simple. They will kill the captain of the Lusitania. By killing him, they will be able to frame Germany for the sinking of the ship, and therefore bring America into the war. But their plan is soon discovered, and the 2 assassins are killed before they can carry out their evil plot. As the U.S. enters the war, it is announced that whoever is responsible for the sinking of the ship will be brought to justice. An investigation is carried out, but it quickly becomes clear that there is very little evidence. There are only 3 pieces of evidence that they have to go off of. One of these pieces of evidence is a lifeboat. This lifeboat was supposed to be carrying survivors of the ship, but it seems to have disappeared. Another piece of evidence is a life raft. This life raft was supposed to be carrying passengers from the ship, but it was found empty. Finally, they have a list of all the passengers and crew on board, but somehow this list has gone missing. With virtually no evidence, they can't find out what really happened to the ship. But here's where things get strange. You see, almost immediately after the ship sank, the British began to blame Germany. But surely they wouldn't just blame someone without any evidence, right? Well, it turns out that they did. Here's the thing. At this point, the British needed to get America involved in the war. They knew that if they blamed Germany for this attack, America would be outraged and join the war. So they began spreading rumors that Germany was to blame. Soon, newspapers across America were screaming Germany is to blame for sinking of Lusitania. But here's the kicker. There is absolutely no proof that Germany was involved in the sinking of the ship. In fact, there's proof that they weren't even close. You see, there was a German submarine nearby at the time, but it wasn't anywhere near the ship. In fact, it had been 50 miles away. Just imagine for a second how huge that is. The Germans tried to tell the British this, but they refused to listen. They wanted to blame the Germans no matter what. When the United States joined the war, they continued to blame Germany. But as time went on, they began to realize that maybe they were wrong. After the war ended, more evidence was uncovered. It became clear that the Germans weren't to blame at all. But so much time had passed that nobody really cared anymore. So who was really responsible for sinking the ship? Well, that depends on who you ask. Some people claim that it was an accident. They say that the lookouts warned the captain about the torpedoes, but he simply ignored them. He assumed that the lookouts were lying and wanted to continue sailing as quickly as possible. Others say that the ship simply wasn't strong enough. They point to the fact that the Lusitania was built during World War I, when ships were as well built as they are today. Still, others say that it was the job of the lifeboat to save people from the ship, but it simply never showed up. These people believe that the lifeboat was either delayed or canceled for unknown reasons. But here's the thing, there is absolutely no way to know who is right. That is because nearly every single person on board died in the incident. The only people who could have possibly known what happened are dead, leaving us with more questions than answers. Here's what we know. The torpedo hit the ship, causing it to sink in less than 20 minutes. But what we don't know is whether or not the torpedo was fired on purpose or by accident. We don't know if the captain made a mistake or if the ship simply wasn't good enough. And we don't know why the lifeboat never showed up. As you can see, this case is full of unanswered questions. Now, what do you think happened to the Lusitania? Was it an accident, sabotage, enemy fire, or something else entirely? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Now, I'm going to leave a video right up there, but don't click on it just yet. Make sure to subscribe if you haven't already. I make videos about crazy conspiracy theories, scary mysteries, and much more. If you like those types of videos, then make sure to hit the bell to be sure to receive them. I also post new videos very often, so there's always fresh content for you to enjoy. And finally, make sure to hit the like button if you enjoyed this video. I'd really appreciate it. Okay, now you can click the video right up there. See you next time.